Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS College Football Week 5 Loaded Saturday. There's a lot of awesome games on. This is going to be a fun day. You know the drill. Going to get through as many games as I can. We'll talk about them all on the live show, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be live for 2 hours all the way up to kickoff. So if you're able to join us for the live show, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's get into it.
I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points?
I would hope.
Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. Bowling Green, Ohio. This one was up at 10.5. Looks like they've been taking pretty consistent Bowling Green money. It's now down to 8. Bowling Green, Ohio. Ohio's defense, man, not off to the strongest start here. 108th in success rate, 118th in PPA. I mean, that MAC championship defense from last year is gone. Tim Albin is obviously gone. He took the head coaching job down at Charlotte. They have played one good defensive game this season. It was a home game against West Virginia. But other than that, they've been struggling to make stops, this Ohio Bobcats defense. They were struggling to make stops against Gardner-Webb. So Ohio does not have a very strong defense. The good news is Bowling Green's offense, I mean, it was terrible last week. The final score of that Louisville game is very misleading. They scored 2 long touchdowns late in garbage time. They had a 75-yard touchdown and then another 75-yard touchdown drive that consisted of 2 40-yard plays. And they were down like 35 points at the time. Now, my pick for the game was Bowling Green plus 26.5 and the over. And those 2 plays gave me both of them. So it made my picks win. But Bowling Green wasn't doing anything in this game. They padded the stats a little bit with a couple of huge plays late in the game in garbage time. So this Bowling Green offense, really disappointing. Drew Pine did complete some throws in the Cincinnati game. I happened to watch that entire game. I mean, I don't think it's going to be this bad all year, but they struggled to move the ball in the Liberty game. The final score, that was a little misleading. They struggled to move the ball in the opener against Lafayette. We might have just need to come to the conclusion that this offense just might not be very good. So even though I don't think Ohio's defense is good at all, I think a home game here against a Bowling Green offense I don't trust, I think they can play a solid defensive game. I mean, we're not going to see this Ohio defense just pitch shutouts like we've seen in years past with Tim Albin, but I think they can play a solid defensive game here. On the other side of the ball, this is where the matchup looks favorable for Ohio because as much as the defense has fallen off from last year's MAC championship team, Parker Navarro and the Ohio offense seem to have picked up right where they left off. The offense looks great. The offense looks even better than last year. And if we were talking about last year, Bowling Green had an elite. That was one of the stronger MAC defenses there last year, this Bowling Green defense. It's completely gone. I think they lost 9 or 10 starters from that defense, and this unit does not look good. They're allowing 6.88 yards per play, 46.8% success rate. This defense has not been strong. And we've seen Parker Navarro and this Ohio offense look pretty good in every single game except at Ohio State on the road in Columbus. And I think we can cut Ohio a little bit of slack for not moving the ball in Columbus. Not to mention, on top of the defensive struggles they're already having, Bowling Green lost Dorian Pringle. He was their leading tackler, middle linebacker there. So one of the main pieces on that Bowling Green defense is out for the season. Now, Ohio may be missing a piece on the offensive line. Trent Allen, he left the Gardner-Webb game early. He's a starting guard, so maybe they're missing a piece on the offensive line. But at home, I don't think this Ohio offense struggles to move the ball at all against this Bowling Green defense. It looks like it's going to take Eddie George a couple years to get this defense up and running. I actually laid minus 10, so I got the worst of the number. It's down to 7.5 now. The market hates my bet, but I do think Ohio wins comfortably, so give me Ohio minus 7.5. Notre Dame, Arkansas. This one was up at 6, and it looks like they were getting hit with Arkansas money. Got all the way down to 4. They raised the limits to 20K, and it looks like Notre Dame got hit at 4. We're now sitting at 4.5. Notre Dame, Arkansas, and this Arkansas team, man, coming off a heartbreaker. If you didn't watch it, so Memphis had a late lead. Arkansas was winning for most of the game, and then Memphis took a late lead. Arkansas was driving down to kick the game-winning field goal. They fumbled it on the 9-yard line. I don't know why they weren't just kneeling on it to kick the field goal. I'm sure that's the topic of conversation, but they handed the ball off. I'm assuming to just grab one last first down so they could run it all the way down. Fumbled it on the 9-yard line when a field goal would have won. Heartbreaking loss for Arkansas. This Arkansas defense has really come crashing back down to earth. They got off to a good start, and it was like, oh, wait, is Arkansas going to have a defense this year? Arkansas's defense was really bad last year. The last 2 games against Ole Miss and Memphis, it has really come crashing down to earth, and we're starting to see Arkansas's defensive numbers look kind of like how last year's Arkansas defensive numbers look. This does not look to be a strong defense at all. Now, one thing this Arkansas defense has done pretty well is pressure the passer. Even in the Ole Miss and Memphis games where they were getting the ball moved on them, they actually had some decent-looking pressure numbers. But C.J. Carr's actually he's handled pressure well. He's gotten the ball off quickly. C.J. Carr's numbers look pretty solid. I think C.J. Carr's look pretty good for Notre Dame. There's a lot of concern surrounding this Notre Dame team, but they're all on the other side of the ball. The offenses look pretty good. I like C.J. Carr. So against this Arkansas defense that I don't think is very good, he should have himself a good game here. Remember, the only time where we really saw Notre Dame look bad on this side of the ball was week 1 on the road in Miami, and it was C.J. Carr's first start in a hostile environment. We've seen how that looks. I mean, quarterback making their first start on the road in Hard Rock, place was going crazy. Not to mention, looking back, I mean, Miami is showing us week after week that they might be one of the strongest teams in the country, so maybe we cut them a little bit of slack for that start there on the road in Miami. Look at C.J. Carr's numbers from the last 2 games. He seems to be progressing as the year comes along here. And one of those games is against Texas A&M. I mean, even Purdue's defense is much stronger than it was last year. So it's not like they played scrub opponents. C.J. Carr seems to be progressing into a nice quarterback here for Notre Dame up against an Arkansas defense that, like I said, I don't trust at all. They're still missing one of their main corners there, Walker. He was carted off the field in week 3. Very unlikely that he plays. In fact, I think he might already be ruled out. I think he's going to miss significant time. So, yeah, I have no doubts that Notre Dame's able to move the ball pretty efficiently in this game against Arkansas. It's the other side of the ball. This is what has everyone talking. The Notre Dame defense, man, 97th in success rate, 117th in PPA, just a complete opposite with what we've seen from Notre Dame defenses under Marcus Freeman the last few years. The first 3 games of the season, they're allowing 32.7 points per game, success rate up at 43.5%, 5.87 yards per play. They're struggling to defend the pass. The first 2 games, we kind of gave Notre Dame a pass on that. We were like, you know what? They played Miami on the road. They played Texas A&M. Those are some explosive offenses. But then they played Purdue, and even Purdue was completing passes on Notre Dame. So that's got everyone hitting the panic button when it comes to the Notre Dame defense. This is a unit that needs Leonard Moore back in the worst way. He's listed as questionable. He didn't play in the Purdue game. It's one of their main DBs. As I'm recording this, I don't have an update on that, so I don't know if Leonard Moore is going to be back, but Notre Dame could really use his help out on the field, especially because now they're going on the road. And when it comes to Arkansas's defense, we could sit here and I don't trust it. This is a bad defense, and that's all accurate. But Arkansas's offense is pretty official. Through their first 4 games, they're looking even more explosive than last year. 43.5 points per game, success rate up close to 54%, over 8.1 yards per play. So how can we possibly trust Notre Dame's defense to go on the road against an SEC opponent, an explosive Arkansas offense? If you're looking for a way to get to Notre Dame, you can say, hey, Taylor Green's been excellent. He's an electric playmaker, but his numbers under pressure really don't look all that good. So if Notre Dame's able to generate pressure, I mean, keep in mind, Ole Miss defensive front is not what it was last year. Memphis is not Notre Dame in terms of talent. So Notre Dame, if they're able to get some pressure on Taylor Green, they really could make a difference here. And a Notre Dame defense that's kind of feeling slighted, that everyone's doubting, I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame plays a good defensive game. Now, they're not going to go into Arkansas and shut this offense down, but the way I expect Notre Dame's offense to move the ball, all it's going to take is one stop, maybe a big turnover, and I think Notre Dame could be playing most of this game with the lead. So I know everyone bought this number down for Arkansas, and I understand why, but now that it's down to 4, it's only Notre Dame here. I said on the live show the other day that I would play Notre Dame. Let me see if it's moved since I started recording this. Notre Dame, sorry. Notre Dame, minus 4.5. All right, it's 4.5 across the board. 4 on Pinnacle. So I said on the live show I would play Notre Dame at 3.5. My pick is Notre Dame. I don't have a bet on it, but I think Notre Dame's defense gets back on track a little bit, and Arkansas's defense is terrible. So give me Notre Dame. Game probably gets up and over the total, too, at 63.5. Louisville Pitt, this one's been all over the place. So it was down at 3, 3.5, then got up to 5. Looks like Pitt got hit at 5 and 4.5 and 4. Because now we're down to 3.5 20K limits. Louisville Pitt, Tough road environment here for Miller Moss, who is not off to the best start this season, and he really hasn't played against the toughest competition. I mean, no disrespect to James Madison. That's a strong team, but for Louisville, I mean, that's a home game against a Sun Belt opponent. Considering they've played Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, and Bowling Green, whose defense looks terrible, you would expect Miller Moss to have better looking numbers than this. He's not been under a lot of pressure. Definitely not the greatest start to the season for Miller Moss. So far, Louisville's been extremely reliant on the run. I mean, which is okay because they've got a good offensive line and a superstar running back. But that superstar running back, Isaac Brown, he left last game early. The Bowling Green game, he left that game early. He's listed as questionable. So I'm not sure if Isaac Brown's going to be available for this game. And their other running back, Duke Watson, he missed last week. He didn't even play in the Bowling Green game. So there's some injury concerns to the running back position for Louisville. We're talking about going on the road at Pittsburgh. This is a very tough defensive front and a tough road conference game. Miller Moss hasn't looked all that good. You're going to go in there and without your running backs against a really good run defense. If he doesn't have run support, I don't have a lot of faith in Miller Moss to win this game on the road or certainly not cover the number. Remember, Pitt had an elite run defense last year, and they brought back a ton of production on the defensive front, specifically in the front seven, and it looks like they're picking up right where they left off. Through their 2 FBS games, they played Central Michigan and West Virginia, which, okay, those aren't the strongest offenses, but they're allowing 2.16 yards per carry, 32.1% success rate per rush. This run defense looks every bit as good as it was last year, and with hobbled running backs, yeah, I don't like this matchup for Louisville's offense. I'm not sure if he could go on the road and cover a number or maybe not even win the game. Now, if you're looking for a reason to take Louisville, you can point at the fact that Pitt might be thin at the linebacker position. Well, not might be. They are thin at the linebacker position. They lost 2 linebackers for the year before the season even started. But those 2 linebackers, I believe, were the 3rd and 4th linebackers on the depth chart. So the main 2 guys are healthy, but they're a little thin in terms of depth. So there's something. I believe they've got 2 of their top 3 corners are listed as questionable. This is as of yesterday. So maybe they're thin in the secondary. Still, that's not enough. I don't trust Louisville. I don't trust Miller Moss to go on the road here against this Pitt defense. I think this Pittsburgh defense is really good. So I don't trust Miller Moss to go on the road and make throws in this building. He was struggling in home games against Eastern Kentucky. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where this matchup gets interesting because if you look at Pitt's offensive numbers, they look okay. But the truth is, this Pittsburgh offense has only really been tested once this year on the road in Morgantown. And I don't care what you think of that West Virginia team. They're a bad football team this year. They've been playing good defense. That is a tough defense, and that environment was crazy. It was a really tough game for the Pitt offense. 24 points they ended up scoring, but it was not a fluid. If you watch that game, it was not a fluid offensive game for Pittsburgh. 4.93 yards per play. Success rate was under 35%. West Virginia was blitzing the shit out of Holstein, and he did not handle it well. He was definitely rattled. He didn't handle a clean pocket well either. It was a really ugly offensive game for Pittsburgh there, and now they're matched up against a Louisville defense that's been pretty flawless so far. They haven't really been tested, this defense, but 32.1% success rate, 4.2 yards per play allowed. This defense has looked elite. Now, if you are looking for a reason to trust this Pittsburgh offense here, it is a good spot for them. They're at home coming off a loss and a bye week, so they're rested. Desmond Reed, their star running back, he has an extra week to rest. Remember, he was dealing with an injury heading into that West Virginia game. Also, Louisville struggled in this building their last few trips here. 2023, Pitt beat them up good. Pitt beat them in 2020. Pitt beat them in 2015. So Louisville's actually lost their last 3 trips here to Pittsburgh. Look, there's no way I can lay 4.5 on the road with Miller Moss. Louisville is the stronger team, but especially if there's injuries to the running back position, I'm not sure if he's going to have run support. I would lean towards the under. The under's a little risky with Cade Bell calling the plays for Pittsburgh. He likes to run a fast pace, but just give me Pittsburgh. Is it still a plus 4.5? Yeah, plus 4.5. Yeah, give me Pittsburgh. I'm on the Panthers here. Duke, Syracuse. Looks like the action's been coming in mostly on the Syracuse side. Got as high as 6, but it's pretty much been heading in a straight direction towards Duke since then. Syracuse got hit again at 10K limits. At the time of recording, it's currently sitting at 4. Duke's on the road at Syracuse, and the first thing that jumps out here, both these teams top 10 in the country in pace in terms of seconds between snaps. Also, both these teams love to throw the ball. 5th in passing frequency for Duke, 29th for Syracuse. So right off the bat, we should see a lot of passing, and we should see a fast pace. So I completely understand why the total's super high in this game. And when it comes to Syracuse defense, I mean, I think we can all agree that Duke shouldn't have problems moving the ball here. Syracuse defensively, the numbers do not look good. 120th in success rate, 99th in PPA. They've struggled against the run. They struggled against the pass. Duke's offenses look pretty electric. Even in the games they lost, the offense still looks pretty good. And even in the Clemson game where Syracuse went on the road and picked up a huge upset, I mean, Syracuse averaged over 6.1 yards per play, over 48% success rate. Clemson was moving the ball. I mean, Syracuse defensively, they made a couple big plays to stall drives, but Clemson was moving the ball in that game. So, like I said, the last 3 games for Duke, they lost 2 of these games, but they averaged 30.3 points per game, over 6.5 yards per play, over 45% success rate. So, I mean, I think we can all agree Duke is going to move the ball on Syracuse in this game. It's the other side. That's pretty much what this matchup comes down to is what do you think of the Duke defense against the Syracuse offense? Because keep in mind, not only has this Duke defense been struggling, they're 76th in success rate, 119th in PPA. They've really struggled against the pass. They've been giving up explosive plays. But in addition to all of that, they lose their starting linebacker, Nick Morris Jr. He's out for the season. So he got injured in the NC State game. So they lose a key piece of the defense, too, and this is already a defense that's having a tough time. And it's crazy because the defensive line has actually played well. They're defending the run well. They're generating pressure. They just can't seem to cover anybody. In their last 3 games, they're allowing 310 passing yards per game, 49.7% success rate per dropback. These are their numbers against the pass. These are ugly looking. Duke has struggled in coverage so far this year. And coming into the season, we really didn't know what to expect from the Syracuse offense. I mean, you lose Kyle McCord, you lose the wide receivers, you lose a ton of production on that side of the ball. But Jeff Nixon has shown us, man, he is a hell of a play caller because through the first 4 games, despite losing all those players from last year's offense, they're still averaging 354 passing yards per game, 8.5 yards per pass attempt, 44.8% success rate per dropback. So I guess the main question is, can Syracuse keep this same passing production with Steve Angeli is out, by the way. Oh, I should have mentioned that earlier. Syracuse quarterback out for the season. I probably should have let off with that. So Steve Angeli is out. So can Syracuse keep this same passing production with Ricky Collins at quarterback instead of Steve Angeli? Tough question. Obviously, it's a backup quarterback in a passing offense. You don't love that. But keep in mind, we thought Ricky Collins was going to be the starter until fall camp. We didn't find out that Angeli was actually going to be the starter until midway through August. So I'm not saying there's not a drop-off. Clearly, they chose Fran Brown and Nixon. They chose Angeli to be the starting quarterback. So clearly, he gives them more of what they want. But this guy was supposed to be the starting quarterback coming into the season. So I don't think it's a huge drop-off. And the way this Duke defense has played, I mean, this Syracuse offense, they were making throws. They were scoring points on Tennessee. They were scoring points on Clemson on the road. I mean, this Syracuse offense just might be pretty good. And Ricky Collins, he came in late in the Clemson game. He did throw a touchdown on his second pass attempt, but other than that, I think he was 3 of 8 throwing the ball, so he didn't see much. I would say it would only be Syracuse. The pick I wrote down was over. I make the game Syracuse plus 3.5. So what is it at 4.5? Yeah, it's at 4.5. So I guess a slight lean towards Syracuse. Circa has it at 4. So I guess a slight lean towards Syracuse, but the problem is when I wrote these notes, the total was at like 57.5. So now the number's gone. It's up at 60. I make the game Syracuse plus 3.5 and 61.5 is what I made the game. So the numbers are pretty close to where I have it. So Syracuse and over, but I don't have a bet in the game. Georgia Tech, Wake. Early in the week, this one was up at 15.5. Pretty much down at a flat 2 touchdowns. They seem pretty comfortable there because we're now up to 20K limits. Hasn't moved. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Let's give Wake some credit on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they've played some defense this year. Even in the NC State game where they lost, the defense played pretty well. 5.34 yards per play, 40.8% success rate. And NC State's got a pretty explosive offense there with C.J. Bailey. So Wake Forest has been playing some defense. I think it's safe to say this is a more physical defense this year with Dickert, with the new coaching staff. The problem in the NC State game was the offense just never came out of the tunnel at halftime. They went up and down the field a few times early in the game, and then they just didn't move the ball at all in the second half. But the defense did their job. They were playing tough defense in that game. It's not a huge sample, and they haven't seen the toughest of competition. What worries me most, though, is they haven't seen a rushing attack. And now they're not just seeing a rushing attack. They're going to see one of the most dynamic physical rushing attacks in the entire country in Georgia Tech. And they're going to have to do it without their starting safety, Rashawn Tung. He's officially been ruled out for the year. So their safety's out for the year here for Wake Forest. And Georgia Tech, through their first 4 games, is averaging just over 249 rushing yards per game, 6.78 yards per carry, 52.2% success rate per rush. So, yeah, I mean, look, this Wake Forest defense is more physical than last year. It's definitely tougher than last year's, but it's hard to envision a world where Wake Forest is keeping Georgia Tech from running the football. Georgia Tech's going to run the ball in this game, and Georgia Tech also has a bye week after this, so they don't have any reason to look ahead or take their foot off the pedal. Georgia Tech's going to run the ball in this game. I don't think there's a damn thing Wake Forest could do to stop it. On the other side of the ball, do we think Wake Forest is able to score any points? And, I mean, based on this graphic, you'd say probably not. 125th in success rate, 106th in PPA. I mean, like I said, early on in the NC State game, they did go up and down the field a few times. I think they jumped out to a 14-0 lead, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, they didn't do anything after that. And NC State's defense isn't even that good this year. Robbie Ashford just hasn't really shown us he's capable of being an efficient thrower. This is going to be the toughest defense he's seen by a pretty large margin so far this year. I mean, maybe you could say Georgia Tech's a little bit vulnerable to the run. Clemson was able to run the ball on them, and Wake Forest does actually have a little bit of a rushing attack. Remember, Jake Dickert, the new head coach, came over from Washington State. He brought 3 starters on the offensive line with him, and Claiborne is their all-ACC running back from last year. He's still there. So they got a good RB. They've got what should be a better offensive line than last year. So, I mean, maybe Wake Forest is able to run the football a little bit. I would imagine after seeing Robbie Ashford the last couple of games, they're certainly going to try. But with inconsistent quarterback play, it's unlikely that they're able to sustain drives. The problem is the market's all over this one. I mean, hold on. Let me see what the line was at. It was at 14, 13.5 before. Yeah, it's at 14. I have this one at 13.5. So I guess I'll say Wake, but nah, I don't see any reason Georgia Tech doesn't win this one comfortably. So you know what? Because I expect to see a lot of running out of Wake Forest, I'll say under 52.5, but it looks like it has been bet down from 53.5. Yeah, give me under 52.5, but I don't have a ton of interest in this one. Rutgers, Minnesota, not a ton going on in this market. It was at 4.5, got up to 5.5. Now it's at a flat 5, 20K limits. Rutgers, Minnesota, and let's give some credit right off the bat to Rutgers offense. This is looking like a pretty explosive passing attack, and having a healthy Ian Strong at wide receiver was definitely noticeable. He was a huge boost, making plays against Iowa, and honestly, they went up and down the field a couple times against Iowa. They had an early lead, so let's give some credit to Callie McManus, and this is definitely a passing attack. The thing about Minnesota's defense here, they're going to go on the road and play Minnesota. This is one of the strongest defensive fronts in the country. There's not going to be many teams, especially on the road in Minnesota, that are able to run the football. So, I mean, even if Samuel Brown returns from injury, and I don't even know if he is, that's Rutgers RB, he's been out. So even if he returns from injury, I still don't expect Rutgers to run the football here. Their other running back, C.J. Campbell Jr., he's going to miss another game. So Rutgers has been their passing attack's been way more impressive than their rushing attack so far this year. They're not going to have any run support at all. It's probably going to force Rutgers into a pretty one-dimensional game plan. I mean, if you think Rutgers is going to run the ball in Minnesota, through their first 3 games, Minnesota's allowing 1.77 yards per carry, 22.1% success rate per rush. And here's the graphic right here. You can see they brought back pretty much everybody in their defensive front 7. Now, if you're looking to take Rutgers, I mean, you can point to the fact that the pieces Minnesota lost from last year's defense, their 2 star corners and their 2 star edge rushers. All 4 were at least all-conference or all-conference honorable mention. Their 2 main corners, their 2 main edge rushers, and their safety. So maybe you could make the argument that this Minnesota defense is going to be vulnerable to the pass. I mean, what happened to Minnesota the first time they saw a decent quarterback? That kid over in Cal, they beat him by 2 scores. 27-14 was the final score here. So is Callie McManus about to go on a revenge tour here on the road in Minnesota? Remember, that's where he comes from. He transferred to Rutgers from Minnesota. I personally just can't see it. I feel like PJ Fleck knows exactly what Rutgers is going to try to do offensively. I don't think they pose much of a threat on the ground the way the team's currently constructed and with the injuries. So, I mean, Callie McManus is going to be in a situation here on the road in Minnesota. And even in the Iowa game at home, he started off strong and really fell off in the second half. So, from New Jersey, as much as I would love to sit here and be like, Callie McManus is about to go piece up his old squad, and as much as I would love to rally around Callie McManus here, I just can't see that happening. And on the other side of the ball, Rutgers that defense is terrible. back-to-back years where Rutgers lost one of their best defensive players before the season started. This year was that big nose tackle they brought in from South Florida in the portal. Was supposed to be kind of the anchor there in the middle. Injured in camp, didn't play a single game. Last year was the linebacker Torre, who now plays for Miami. So back-to-back years, Rutgers loses a key defensive piece before the season even started. They can't stop anybody. Man, they're up 98th in success rate, 74th in PPA. Now, the good news for Rutgers is Minnesota's offense doesn't look very good. They laid an absolute egg against Cal. Important to point out, though, their star running back, their all Big Ten running back, Darius Taylor, did not play in that game. He didn't play in the Cal game. And also, that was on the road in the West Coast. And we've seen a lot of that in the Big Ten with this merger with the Pac-12 teams coming in. Whenever a team from the West travels to the middle of the country or vice versa, team from the an OG Big Ten team travels out west, we see them struggle. So it's a redshirt freshman quarterback out on the West Coast. I'm not overreacting to Minnesota's offense struggling. I don't think this is going to be a good offense, but I mean, there are MAC offenses that can move the ball without problems on this Rutgers defense. In fact, we've seen a couple of them do it already this year. So just a tough spot for PJ Fleck. I'm not worried about this 4.86 yards per play or anything like that. I think they'll move the ball just fine in this one. Now that they're back at home, I mean, I think Minnesota can move the ball just fine in this one. I mean, Rutgers is terrible against the run. You know that's what PJ Fleck's going to do, just hand it off behind that offensive line. Now, look, Darius Taylor, the star running back, he's questionable. And their second running back, A.J. Turner, is also questionable. So some injury concerns at the running back position for Minnesota. But I don't even care if it's RB3 back there. I still think they're able to run the ball on Rutgers. Minnesota should be able to sustain some long drives in this game. Kalik Madison, those Rutgers receivers, I'm sure they're going to make some plays. But I also really could see Kalik Madison turn the ball over in this revenge game. So look, if this game's under, I make this game a flat 7 if Minnesota's healthy. With the injuries, maybe that keeps me off. But if I knew Darius Taylor or A.J. Turner was going to play, if I knew I was going to get one of those two backs, I would lay the 5.5. So give me Minnesota minus 5.5 in this one. Cincinnati, Kansas. This one's been bouncing around a little bit. Got up to 6. Looks like Cincinnati got hit at 6 and again at 5.5. Got down to 4.5. Then they raised the limits to 20K. And then it looks like Kansas got hit. We're now sitting at a flat 5. Cincinnati, Kansas, and I had one major concern with this Kansas defense entering the season, and I talked about it several times. The secondary. They've been fortunate. They haven't seen a ton of explosive offenses yet this year. Their only real challenge was Missouri, and they gave up 42 points in that game. But this Cincinnati offense can move the ball. They're actually 4th in success rate, 7th in PPA against some questionable competition. But this is a dynamic offense. We know Sorsby can throw the ball, so this is going to be the second real test for this Kansas secondary, and they failed the first one against Missouri. There is some good news for this Kansas defense, though. Their linebacker, Joseph Sipp, he was finally cleared. He hadn't played, I believe he missed the first 3 games. He only played 9 snaps in the West Virginia game, but that was his first time seeing the field all season. Between him, the other inside linebacker, Kamara, they were missing both their inside linebackers there for the first couple of games. And then a corner, DJ Graham, missed the opener as well. He was dealing with something all camp. So Kansas was operating, missing 3 starters on the defensive side of the ball. It seems like all of those injury concerns are gone because I believe all 3 of those guys are now healthy and participating and going to play. So it looks like Kansas defense is healthier right now than they have been all year, which is huge. But unfortunately, that really doesn't change the fact that I don't think this secondary is very good. Cincinnati, they got off to a slow start in the opener against Nebraska, but I like Sorsby. He was great last year, and the 2 games since the Nebraska game, granted, not against the best competition at all, looks like he's settling into his groove. He has essentially a perfect QB rating in those 2 games. Well, not a perfect one. This isn't the NFL. But 154.3, he hasn't been under a ton of pressure, none of that. But I don't think this Kansas secondary is very good. So I think Sorsby could have a big game here against Kansas. I think he's going to make throws on this secondary that I don't think is very good. Bo Pribula, 334 yards, a 127.5 QB rating. Kansas couldn't get up on a ton of pressure on him. He handled it excellently. So, yeah, I think Sorsby's going to be fine. I think Sorsby's going to play a big game. It's the other side of the ball. I mean, this is where the matchup swings heavily towards the Kansas side. We know how explosive this Kansas offense can be, especially at home. They're 20th in success rate, 43rd in PPA. Week 4, last week against West Virginia, who, by the way, has been a very tough defense this year. Cooked them. 6.23 yards per play. Success rate up close to 45%. Hung 41 points on that West Virginia defense. Now, I don't want to completely write this Cincinnati defense off. They are looking stronger than they did last year. They're allowing 13.3 points per game, under 4 yards per play, 37.7% success rate. So this Cincinnati defense has played well, but they really haven't seen anybody. They saw Nebraska in the opener, and I don't know what's going on with Nebraska, but they played one good game against Nebraska. They haven't seen anybody since. And in that Bowling Green game, by the way, I watched that game. Drew Pine was completing some passes on him. So I think the Cincinnati defensive numbers are a mirage. I don't think this defense is very good, and I think Jalen Daniels at home, healthy, is going to cook all over this Cincinnati defense. Cincinnati hasn't shown us much of a pass rush at all this year. In fact, just 22.5% pressure rate. I mean, they don't blitz much. You're going to give Jalen Daniels clean pockets to work with. So Kansas should be able to run the ball. So, yeah, I expect Kansas to put up a big number in this one, and I think Cincinnati should score right back. So, yeah, I'm on the over. I like this over a lot. I got it at 54.5. What's it at now? Sorry. Oh, my God. It's 57.5 now. I'd still play it. Screw it. Play it up to 60. So, yeah, I'm on the over. Got a good number on this one. South Alabama, North Texas. I mean, this Mean Green team is just a wagon. I do think the market may have taken this a little too far, though. So this is a South Alabama offense that likes to run the ball. They're 18th in rushing frequency so far this year. And based on what we've seen so far, that might play into the weakness of this North Texas defense. They're 82nd in success rate per rush, 90th in PPA per rush. They really struggled with Army, especially in that second half. Army came all the way back from down 3 scores. North Texas defense just couldn't get off the field. Now, South Alabama is not Army. That's obviously a completely different type of rushing attack. And South Alabama has had their struggles, but there are only 2 FBS games outside of Auburn were Tulane and Coastal Carolina, and they were able to run the ball efficiently in both those games. 4.86 yards per carry, success rate per rush over 49%. I think South Alabama is able to run the ball a little in this game. They have a very talented running back in Kentrell Bullock. So I think South Alabama is able to stay on the field for stretches at a time. I'm not saying they're going to put up a big number against North Texas. This North Texas defense with Skylar Cassidy coaching, that's the new DC there. It comes from Sam Houston. Clearly, this is a much better defense than what we've seen during the rest of Eric Morris's tenure. But I think South Alabama is able to move the ball a little bit on this North Texas defense. It's the other side of the ball where I'm just not sure how you can trust South Alabama on the road against a North Texas offense that's been, I mean, they've been hanging 40, 50 points on their opponents for years. Well, for a couple years. This is Eric Morris' 3rd year there as head coach. This defensive front seven's really struggling for South Alabama. I mean, you cut them some slack for the Auburn game. One of the best offensive lines in the country. And you know what? You can even maybe cut them a little bit of slack against Tulane, but the struggle against Coastal Carolina is just inexcusable, and you can't unsee that. So it's really tough to have faith in the South Alabama defensive front. I mean, I suppose you could say North Texas is an offense that wants to throw the ball. They're not really built to exploit a weak run defense. I believe they're still missing their RB1 there, Kiefer Sibley. I think he's going to miss another game. The strength of this North Texas offense has been the quarterback Mestamaker. So, I mean, I don't care, though. They should be able to run the ball. They should be able to move the ball just fine. I mean, I can't believe I'm picking against North Texas on the video, but I can't help but think the market has just blown this one. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were just talking about this on the live stream. This game probably would have been North Texas -6.5. It's now 12.5, down from 13.5. Like, that just seems like such an extreme overreaction. So it would only be South Alabama, but not because I don't think North Texas is official, none of that. I just think the market has pushed this one too far. That's a big number. So give me South Alabama. I had said, we were talking about this game in the group chat, and it was at 13.5. And I had told everyone, let's bet South Alabama if it hits 14. And then an hour later, it actually came down to 12.5. It moved the other way. So I'll pick South Alabama. There's a 13. Give me South Alabama plus 13. UCF's on the road at Kansas State. And I got to say, that game against Belichick, Scott Frost, that's very impressive. Not that we didn't already think that Scott Frost is a better college football head coach than Bill Belichick. I think pretty much everyone already thought that. But just how much better was really on full display in that game, because we kind of gave Bill Belichick a pass, deservingly so. In the opener, it was his first game with the program, brand new roster, brand new coaching staff, and they opened up the season against TCU, who's an experienced team with an experienced coaching staff. They've all played together, the same quarterback, so it's kind of just a tough draw there in the opener. We were like, that's a tough game to open up your season. We kind of gave him a pass for that. What is the excuse here? Because Scott Frost at UCF is also, he just took that job and has a brand new roster there, mostly built through the portal also. Same situation as North Carolina. How do you get beat by 25 points? Wow. So yeah, Scott Frost has this program humming. I mean, that was a very impressive game. They dominated on both sides of the ball. 48.4% success rate on the offensive side, 35.1% success rate allowed on the defensive side. Yeah, just an absolute domination for Central Florida. And it's starting to look like this guy, Scott Frost, just doesn't lose football games as the head coach for Central Florida. That's 16 in a row. Remember, he was there in 2017. They went 13-0. They went undefeated. Then he left, took the Nebraska job. Now he's back and they're 3-0. So 16 straight wins as the head coach for UCF. And look, this UCF team, Kansas State is more talented. But Avery Johnson, there's something going on with this offense. First of all, the offensive line is not nearly as good as we're accustomed to seeing with Kansas State. That Kansas State program, we've pretty much been able to hang our hats on them having one of the strongest Big 12 offensive lines every single year, because they always do. This is the first year where we're seeing Kansas State operate without a good offensive line. They lost most of the starters from last year, and then they brought in a big transfer from Ohio State who was supposed to play left tackle, and he got injured in camp, so he's not even there. So this offensive line is struggling, and Avery Johnson just isn't handling it well. I mean, not that he's even been under a ton of pressure, but he hasn't handled it well. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. He hasn't made good decisions. So the offensive line's not as good as it has been in years past. Avery Johnson is not playing well at all. I don't know what's going on with Dylan Edwards. Is he healthy? Is he not healthy? I don't even know if he's playing in this game. He's dealing with an injury or whatever he's going through. And then the big wide receiver transfer they brought in, Bradley, he's out indefinitely. So he's not even playing. So, and the big tight end recruit, they brought in a 5-star tight end recruit who I believe was the highest rated recruit in Kansas State history. He's been out all year. I don't think he's played yet. So in addition to the quarterback's not playing well, the offensive line's hurt and not producing, they've also got major injuries to their offensive weapons as well. So it's just a perfect storm here for Kansas State offensively, and it's shown. I mean, 24.3 points per game, 38.4% success rate. They haven't even played the toughest opponents outside of Iowa State. Arizona was that game was close at the end. That was not a close game. Arizona was clearly the better team for 95% of that game. So yeah, this Kansas State offense is not producing right now. Now, when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, I will say I still trust this Kansas State defensive front. This is a very strong run defense last year, and they brought back most of their pieces there. So I still trust this Kansas State defensive front, and by no means would I expect UCF to go on the road here and just move the ball up and down on this Kansas State defense. But I will say this kid, Taven Jackson, is impressive. The way he handles pressure. I mean, he hasn't been under a ton of pressure yet this year, but when he has experienced pressure, he looks like a 4-year starter. He looks well coached. He looks experienced. He looks comfortable. Remember, he's not a freshman. He started games before. He started games at Indiana. He actually started a game against Louisville, and they lost that game 21-14, but they were 1 yard short of tying the game late in the fourth quarter. So he started big-time conference game, big-time college football games before, Power 4 games. So this is not a freshman, and he looks comfortable. He looks experienced. I'm going with a team that looks in way better shape, playing with way more confidence, that looks that it looks like a way better coached team. I took UCF plus 6.5, even though this is the get-right spot of all get-right spots for Kansas State. I don't think they're 6.5 points better than UCF right now, the way they're playing. I think UCF's rolling. So, not to mention, Scott Frost doesn't seem to lose football games as the head coach of UCF. So, I'm on the plus 6.5 here. USC, Illinois, and the story of this game is just injuries, especially on this side of the ball. The USC offense against the Illinois defense. You ready for this? So, USC star receiver Jacoby Lane remains out indefinitely. So USC missing a key wide receiver there. He missed the Michigan State game as well. They also might be missing their left tackle Elijah Page. So USC might be missing a couple pieces there on the offense. But the story is on the other side. The Illinois secondary was absolutely smoked in that Indiana game. They're all Big Ten cornerback Xavier Scott. He got injured in week 3. He'll be out for a while. Another one of their corners is Caleb Patterson. He got injured in the Indiana game. He was seen on crutches. He's expected to miss time. So that's another corner out. Another corner, so this is their top 3 corners, Torrey Cox Jr., he left the Indiana game injured. He's listed as questionable. I can't find any updated information on that. Their starting safety and leading tackler, Matthew Bailey. He suffered a concussion in the Indiana game. I'm not sure if he was actually diagnosed with a concussion, but he's questionable. We don't know if he's going to play either. Their other safety was ejected for targeting. He's going to play, but he wasn't playing at the end of that Indiana game either. And keep in mind, this is a secondary that's already missing Jaheim Clark, who's been out all year. So this Illinois secondary is just cooked. And, I mean, USC is not exactly an offense you want to see if you're vulnerable in the secondary. We know USC can put points on the board. I mean, we've seen this Illinois defense, their 2 Power 4 games were against Indiana and Duke, and they allowed 41 points, 56.5% success rate in those 7.5 yards per play. So this defense looked terrible the 2 times they saw Power 4 opponents. Now, if you're on Illinois, you can point at the fact that you just never bet USC in this spot. What did we see last year? USC joins the Big Ten. They went on the road in true road Big Ten games 3 times. It was Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland. Not only were they favored by more than a field goal in all 3 of those games, they lost all 3 of those games outright. And that high-powered USC offense didn't look very high-powered. So USC maybe doesn't do so well in these true road Big Ten games. We saw them with 1 already this year. They went on the road to Purdue, and I mean, Purdue covered that game. USC didn't blow Purdue out or anything like that. It was 33-17, the final score. I will say the USC offense looked fine, though. 6.88 yards per play, success rate up close to 48%. So, I mean, USC did dominate that game. But, yeah, 0-4 ATS in true road Big Ten games since joining the conference. Now, on the other side of the ball, I think Illinois is poised for a big bounce-back game offensively, and they didn't do anything on the road in Indiana. 28.3% success rate, 3.58 yards per. This is terrible. So I do think Illinois will bounce back offensively. This is not a USC pass defense that's particularly great. I mean, not that Purdue and Michigan State were piecing them up or anything, but USC was generating pressure, couldn't really make them pay for it. This defense looks okay. So Altmaier is a quarterback I trust. Coming off a terrible game back at home, I would expect Illinois' offense to bounce back. I think Altmaier can make throws on this USC defense. So you're thinking over, right? That's what I'm thinking. The problem is neither of these teams run a particularly fast pace. 112th and 78th in pace, these 2 teams. So it's tough to take it over 60.5 in a game that might not be the fastest pace. So it would only be USC minus 6.5 because of the injuries to the Illinois secondary. But I don't know. Give me USC and over. But I haven't placed a bet on the game. The injuries make it crazy. I do think spot-wise, this is where you take Illinois, like sports betting 101. The team that just gets blown out on the road and is now catching a big number at home, you take them to bounce back. But with the injuries to Illinois secondary, I don't think I can do it. So give me USC or over here. Utah State, Vanderbilt. I got to say, Bronco Mendenhall has made me a believer with this Utah State team, but on paper, this is a really tough matchup. I mean, Utah State's been struggling against the run on the road against Vanderbilt. It's looking like one of the toughest rushing attacks to stop in the country. I mean, look at Vanderbilt's offensive numbers. This is just nuts. 5th in success rate, 5th in PPA, elite rushing numbers, elite passing numbers. Now, when you take a look at the game logs for Utah State, it doesn't look quite as bad. I mean, obviously your run defense numbers, if you're a Mountain West program, they're going to look pretty bad when you play Air Force. It's the toughest rushing attack in the Mountain West every single year, and Texas A&M in there. So obviously you don't expect Utah State to have elite numbers against the run, but that 51% success rate per rush is concerning. Struggling to get off the field against the run, and that's exactly what Vanderbilt does. So not a great matchup for Utah State defensively. Now, what you can say for Utah State is when it comes to Vanderbilt, I mean, this is the look-ahead spot of all look-ahead spots. Keep in mind, this isn't last year where Vanderbilt's just like an adorable little story that pulled a couple upsets off. Vanderbilt is starting to get thrown around in conversations for a possible SEC championship team. I know, it's crazy, but they are. People are throwing Vanderbilt's name around. They're starting to get talked about for real. And after this home game against Utah State, they go to Tuscaloosa for the biggest game, the revenge game. Alabama's looking to show everyone that was a fluke last year, shut Vanderbilt up. Vanderbilt's looking to make a statement on the road. That is the game of all games next week. So it would be the look-ahead spot of all. And by the way, right after that, you get right into SEC play, right into the heart of it for Vanderbilt. So there's something for Utah State, the look-ahead spot of all look-ahead spots. Another thing for Utah State, I think they may be getting their star safety back. Ike Larson, he's been suspended from the team. He hasn't played yet this year, and they have not announced that he's coming back, but there's speculation because he posted this on his Instagram. I know, I'm just repeating what I'm reading here. So he posted this on this Instagram story. Bronco Mendenhall wouldn't comment on it, but I think there's speculation that Ike Larson might be making his season debut here. He's their best defensive player, their star safety. So Utah State might be getting their star safety back on the defensive side. Now, you can say the same thing for Vanderbilt, by the way. Issa Watara is one of their best, probably the best defensive lineman, and he's barely played this year. I mean, I think he played a few snaps, but they're saying he might come back. But if I had to guess, I would guess Vanderbilt would use him sparingly. Maybe bring him in for a few snaps to just make sure he's all right for the Alabama game. We'll see. Look, Vanderbilt's a wagon, but the look-ahead spot, the 22.5, that's the same amount of points that Texas A&M was laying to Utah State. So we're pricing Vanderbilt like Texas A&M now. I think we're taking it a little far. I think Bronco Mendenhall keeps it within the number. Give me the Aggies, Utah State, plus the big number. Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, and the early action was coming in on the Central Michigan side on this one, but I think some of that was due to the weather. The weather was supposed to be nasty. It was bought all the way up to 6. They raised limits to 10K. Now it's looking like the weather's going to be okay because it looks like they've been taking nothing but Eastern Michigan money. We're all the way down to a flat 3 in this one. Eastern Michigan's on the road in Mount Pleasant where they have not had the most success. And right off the bat, I don't know how you lay 6.5 points with Central Michigan. They play an insanely slow pace. For those of you that don't know, Matt Drinkall's the new head coach for Central Michigan. He's an Army guy. So they play a very slow pace, a slow, grinded out physical rushing attack. If I'm going to lay a big number with a team like that, it better be a very good team. And the truth is, it just hasn't been that great. They're 123rd in success rate, 121st in PPA in the offensive side of the ball. Now, look, Eastern Michigan's defense can't stop anybody. By no means am I trying to gas them up. Look, when it comes to Central Michigan's offense, the problem is the data points are too crazy. You've got week 1 against San Jose State where they pull the upset off as big underdogs. But that game was a little weird. They jumped out to an early lead, like a 10-0 lead, I think it was. From that point on, San Jose State was the better team. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. And even despite San Jose State turning the ball over a bunch of times, like San Jose State just beat themselves. Despite all that, San Jose State still had a field goal to win, and they missed it. So I don't know how impressed. They got off to a great start with the new coaching staff and the new system. Definitely caught San Jose State off guard. But it wasn't that, they didn't look that strong in that game. And then you have Pittsburgh and Michigan, which, look, they didn't do anything offensively, but it's Pittsburgh and Michigan, so I don't know how much you take away from that. And then, okay, they played a good offensive game against Wagner, who's not even a strong FCS team. So the data points are just crazy here for Central Michigan. You might be saying, hey, Eastern Michigan's defense is like an FCS defense, and I get it, but you got to keep in mind Jermarion McNulty is back. That's their captain, safety, best defensive player. He missed the first 3 games of the year. So he's back. And what happened the first game he came back? They won. As a 2.5-point underdog, they pick up the win. And not that the defense was crazy, 6.58 yards per play, but success rate under 41%. It was a good effort. It was Eastern Michigan's best game so far. So McNulty's back. And Mauchan didn't even play in that game. That's their inside linebacker and other defensive captain. So they're yet to have their 2 defensive captains on the field at the same time. That might happen in this one. So if they have those 2 guys on the field at the same time, Eastern Michigan's defense should be much better than the defense we've seen so far. And on the other side of the ball, I'm not worried about Eastern Michigan's offense. I mean, this offense can move the ball. 71st in success rate, 62nd in PPA. Noah Kim can play some quarterback. Porter Rooks was getting involved. That's their star receiver. He missed all of last year with an injury. He had 7 catches last week. Only like 39 yards, so they weren't monster catches, but it's good to see him getting involved. I'm not worried about Eastern Michigan's offense. They can move the ball despite having an injury or 2 on the offensive line, and the Central Michigan defense hasn't done much. So I'm not worried about the Eastern Michigan offense. I'm just worried about those 2 pieces being on the field for the Eastern Michigan defense. Look, I think Eastern Michigan can win this game outright. I know they haven't had much success in this building. 6 consecutive losses on the road in Mount Pleasant. Chris Creighton's actually never won here. 5 of those 6 losses was during Chris Creighton's tenure. But the last time they were here, they almost got it done. They had a late lead. They blew it, and then they missed a field goal to tie. So they almost got it done last time they were here. I think they get it done. I actually think they went outright. I'm on Eastern Michigan plus 6.5. Okay, this is down to 4.5 now. I'm just looking at this right now. So, all right, cool. Looks like I got a good number in this one. Yeah, I think Eastern Michigan's live. If those two guys are playing on the defensive side, which I know McNulty is, I'm not sure about Malchan. I think Eastern Michigan can win this game. So, give me Eastern Michigan. Georgia Southern, James Madison. We've got two opposite play styles here. Obviously, we know Georgia Southern, Clay Helton, they want to throw the ball. They want to move fast. James Madison, so far this year, has been moving at a slow pace and running the football. So kind of a pace war here. We'll see who controls the tempo of this game. Judging by the point spread, I would say the market thinks James Madison's going to. And yeah, if you look at the matchup on paper, should be really tough sledding for Georgia Southern's offense. James Madison, they've been lights out against the pass so far this year. They're actually first in the country in success rate per dropback. So you look at Georgia Southern, an offense that wants to throw the ball, going on the road against this James Madison defense. This on paper, this looks like a nightmare matchup. I do want to say that I think Georgia Southern's offense is a little bit undervalued. They had a really, really tough start to the season. They opened up the year with 2 road games on the West Coast against USC and Fresno. And yeah, the offense didn't look good, but when they came back home, granted, they played Jacksonville State and Maine, but we saw Georgia Southern's offense starting to look like the Georgia Southern offense we expected to see. The criticism of Clay Helton and this Georgia Southern team is never that they can't score. They usually have an explosive offense. It's they can't stop anybody. So even though you look at the Georgia Southern offensive numbers on the year, they don't look great. I do think this is going to be an explosive Sun Belt offense like it was last year and the year before that. So I think Georgia Southern's offense is being slept on a little bit. I think it's a little undervalued. It's on the other side of the ball. I mean, this is where we can't trust Georgia Southern. I mean, James Madison's offense hasn't even looked all that great. They've actually gotten off to a pretty slow start offensively. Passing attack doesn't look that great. It looks like they may have gotten things back on track a little bit with that big win over Liberty, but got to keep in mind, Ethan Vasco went down in that game. It was a tie game at half, and then James Madison kind of ran the score up a little bit on Liberty when they had the backup quarterback in. I haven't been blown away by this James Madison offense. I mean, by no means am I saying Georgia Southern's able to make stops in this game. That defense is terrible. This defense was terrible last year, and they lost their best player. He transferred to Nebraska. They had one of the best linebackers in the conference, and he's gone. So I can't trust Georgia Southern's defense to make stops, but I really don't think this James Madison offense is all that great. They're also missing their running back, or most likely will be missing Petaway again. He's dealing with an injury. He's only got 9 carries in the last 2 games, so I don't know how healthy he is. I mean, look, when it comes to betting this game, my number's way off. I have this one at 11.5, but I'm not that big on James Madison. I do think Georgia Southern's able to score, so maybe they keep it within a couple touchdowns. Give me Georgia Southern plus 17.5. I didn't bet this one. Arkansas State, Louisiana, Monroe. So Arkansas State, we were just talking about this on the live show. Step on a Duck was talking about it. Arkansas State has beaten and covered against Louisiana Monroe 15 straight times. 15 times in a row. An absolute domination in this conference rivalry. I think Louisiana Monroe is pretty terrible, but let's give them some credit. They just went on the road and picked up an FBS win. You do not see ULM picking up road FBS wins very often. So it was over UTEP, but it was they beat them pretty handily. The final score was pretty close, but they were in control start to finish against UTEP. So this Louisiana Monroe team does have a little bit of energy to it. They brought in a new head coach last year, and they definitely seem to be trending in the right direction. I still don't think this is a good team, but vibes are high at Louisiana Monroe. And I know you glance at the most recent data point for Arkansas State, and it's concerning. I mean, Arkansas State, Rayner at quarterback. He's supposed to be one of the more talented quarterbacks in the conference. How do you go on the road to Kennesaw State and get held to 21 points, 4.61 yards per play? This is supposed to be an explosive Sun Belt offense. This is a really terrible data point here. So I do understand if you have concerns with Arkansas State, but the way I look at it is they played one bad game. And on the other side of the ball, I'm not even reading too much into the Arkansas State defense. They played Iowa State, they actually played Iowa State tough. They held Iowa State to 24 points. They played Arkansas, an explosive SEC offense. And then they played Kennesaw State, who, by the way, since making the quarterback change, that kid Amari Odom, I think Kennesaw State's going to have a sneaky good Conference USA offense there. That quarterback I was reading, so Jerry Mack's been following his career since he was 11 years old, and that's the quarterback he wanted there. So He's made the quarterback switch, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't be surprised if Kennesaw State can score points. They're running a new spread-type offense, fast-paced. I think it's going to work. So I think looking back at that data point in a few weeks, it's going to be like, oh, on the road in Kennesaw State, yeah, they're scoring points. So not too concerned with that. I think Arkansas State's the better team. I think they make it 16 in a row. I think the wrong team's favored, but I completely understand if you've sold your stock on Arkansas State. But I still think the defense is going to take a step forward this year. Played some really tough competition so far. I like the hire of Nate Drayling at DC. So, yeah, I think the wrong team's favored. It would be Arkansas State. I don't think the plus 2.5 is there anymore. That's what I wrote down. Yeah, it's at 1.5 now. So I think Arkansas State wins outright. Give me the Red Wolves. Akron Toledo. Man, I do not have a ton of interest in this game. Toledo should win by literally 40 points. That being said, they should have won last week by about 28, and they ended up losing outright 13-14 to Western Michigan. Akron's been bad. They did score some points on UAB, but UAB's defense, this is a UAB defense. They gave up 42 points to Alabama A&M or something. So UAB's got one of the worst defenses in the country. This offense, this passing attack has been incredibly disappointing this year. They're not really playing for anything because they obviously have the postseason ban, so they're not even bowl eligible, even if they are able to string together 6 wins, which is very unlikely. Things are looking pretty dark over there at Akron. On the other side of the ball, Toledo's offense, I know these two units look close on paper, but they're not. I mean, Toledo's got the best offense in the MAC. I know it's had some ups and downs this year, but they've got the most talented offense in the MAC by far. And Akron's defense, they didn't even know who was going to be starting on the defensive line entering the season. So there's a big gap between these two units, even though the numbers so far this year don't show it. Toledo should win this game by 30, 40 points. So it would only be Toledo, but I'm good. Utah, West Virginia, early action was coming in on the Utah side, was bought all the way up to 13.5. Looks like West Virginia did take some money at plus 13.5. We're now looking at 12.5, 20K limits. Utah, West Virginia in Morgantown. This might be a tough trip for the Utes. This West Virginia defense has been strong all year, and it kind of came out of nowhere because their defense was so bad last year. But we've seen enough of a sample size where I trust this West Virginia defense. They've been really tough. And this Utah offense, it looked unstoppable there the first few games. Then we saw them stutter a little bit in Laramie. It was 3-0 at half against Wyoming. And we kind of were like, whatever. On the road in Laramie, tough place to play. And then they ended up running the score later, and we kind of just brushed it off. But then they played Texas Tech, and, I mean, they got dominated. Texas Tech defensive line dominated that game, and it was close up until the end, and Texas Tech scored a few times late to make it look like they killed them, but Texas Tech was the stronger team in that game, and that was at home at Rice-Eccles. So this Utah offense, maybe not as explosive as they looked the first couple of games. And like I said, this might be a really tough road trip in Morgantown. This West Virginia defense, I mean, look, they got ripped up by Kansas, but that was on the road in Kansas. Kansas has one of the most explosive offenses in the country, and it was just days after they won their Super Bowl in the backyard brawl against Pittsburgh. It was just the worst spot ever for West Virginia. I was on Kansas in that game, and yeah, West Virginia's defense struggled in that one as to be expected. But now that they're back home in Morgantown, I trust this defense, and I think they really are able to give Utah's offense some problems, an offense that we might be learning isn't as good as we thought it was. We saw what West Virginia did to Pittsburgh. They were blitzing the hell out of Holstein. They blitzed him over 52% of his dropbacks. They were sending a lot of blitzes on him. They were creating pressure. They had him rattled. He wasn't taking advantage of clean pockets. This environment was going nuts. Now, the environment in Morgantown is not going to be as crazy as it was for the Pittsburgh game, obviously, but they're fired up there. They're pumped to have Rich Rod back. I think the place is going to be going crazy. And this Utah offense just took a loss. Their H-back, tight end / running back, Hunter Andrews, he's out for the season. He had 10 catches, 13 carries. So he wasn't one of their main weapons, but he actually led the team in scrimmage yards against Wyoming. So Utah lost one of their weapons. I think they're going to struggle to move the ball in Morgantown. I do. I trust this West Virginia defense. On the other side of the ball, though, I don't trust this West Virginia offense at all. This offense is so bad. I was so lucky to win the West Virginia money line bet. The cover was the right side, but I still don't know how they pulled that win off against Pittsburgh. They're 88th in success rate, 98th in PPA. This Utah defense looks excellent. There's going to be a ton of pressure on the quarterback. By the way, I don't even think Mark Yule is playing. He's currently listed as questionable, but I don't think he's going to play. I don't trust this West Virginia defense with Nico Marchiol. I certainly don't trust them with who's the other quarterback? Is it going to be Jalen Henderson? I don't know. I don't trust them with the starting quarterback. I certainly don't trust them with the backup quarterback. This offense really doesn't look good. I know considering an under in a Rich Rodriguez game seems crazy. He runs the fastest pace in college football. But after what happened in Laramie, I think Utah's going to play conservative with this one. I think they're going to sustain some long drives. Neither of these teams have been giving us a ton of explosive plays at all. In fact, they're 135th and 127th in explosive play percentage. So neither team's been giving us explosive plays. I think Utah's going to run the football and play conservative, chew the clock. I don't think West Virginia's offense is going to do anything. So I think the move is to go under here. What's it at right now? 1 second. 47.5. Yeah, I agree with the movement. It's been bet down from 50.5. So give me the under. As far as a side, I mean, I would probably make this game like 11.5. So I guess at 12.5, a slight lean towards West Virginia. But I really don't trust their offense to do anything. So give me the under. 47.5. I would need 14 to consider playing West Virginia. Give me the under. San Diego State, Northern Illinois. As far as San Diego State's offense, this is kind of a tough matchup to figure out on this side of the ball. Because San Diego State, I thought this offense was going to be way better than it's been so far. And they have a couple nice looking wins, but the offense really hasn't looked all that great. Even last week against Cal, where they won in blowout fashion. They won like 34-0 or something. So even last week in the blowout win, the offense really wasn't that efficient. 38.5% success rate, 6.59 yards per play is obviously solid. It's really the defense that won them that game, and it was the defense. That's the reason they blew Cal out. But week 2 on the road in Pullman, their only road game, they were terrible. 3.58 yards per play, 37.7% success rate, and I should know, I bet on them in that game. I actually bet on them in both these games. I mean, the only time we've seen this San Diego State team go out on the road, the offense looked terrible. And this Northern Illinois defense, let's give them some credit. They were a great MAC defense last year. They lost basically everyone off that defense, and I thought it was going to be really bad. They look like a decent defense, not nearly as strong as they were last year, but they're playing some solid defense. So I don't know if I trust San Diego State's offense on the road. There is some good news, though. DeNagle's been absolutely terrible when blitzed so far this year. His numbers when blitzed are awful. Northern Illinois basically never blitzes, 18.5% blitz rate. So I suppose there's some good news. I'm not saying that erases all the struggles we've seen from the offense so far, but it certainly gives you a little bit of hope if you're back in San Diego State here. But if you're backing San Diego State, you're probably looking at the other side of the ball because Northern Illinois' offense is terrible. This was a terrible offense last year. They took a bunch of losses. They might even be worse this year. They're dead last in offensive success rate, 136th out of 136. This offense is unable to move the chains. San Diego State's defense, remember, it wasn't particularly great last year, but they brought back basically the entire roster on the defensive side of the ball, and they've been playing some really good defense so far this year. So I can't see Northern Illinois doing much on the offensive side of the ball. I think under 43.5 is worth a look here. Still at 43.5 at time of recording. I would lean towards the San Diego State side at -2.5, but that terrible road performance is scaring me off laying with this team. I mean, they looked terrible against Washington State and Pullman. So I would lean San Diego State -2.5, but under 43.5 might be in play. This should be a slow-paced game. Both these teams run the football a lot. I don't particularly trust either offense. I trust San Diego State's offense slightly more. So, yeah, give me the under San Diego State -2.5. Cal, Boston College, not a ton of action in this market. It was at 6.5, got bought down to 6. 20K limits, we're still sitting at a flat 6. Cal's on the road at Boston College, and, yeah, Cal's stock fell pretty fast here. People were loving this team a week ago. Now we're catching almost a touchdown on the road against Boston College, and a 34-0 loss to a Mountain West program will certainly do that to you. Saka Pulitelli, there was a lot of hype. He looked really good. He was not really good in the San Diego State game. I mean, his numbers look pretty terrible. He was under a lot of pressure. San Diego State wasn't even blitzing him either. It was not a good game. Cal's offense looked awful in that San Diego State game. And now he goes into a much tougher environment. Not only has Boston College played some really great defense so far this year, but this is a defense that was much better at home last year. And they might also be healthier than they were earlier in the year. Both of their corners sat out the last game. Torrance, Syer Torrance, and Amari Jackson. That's 2 of their top 3 corners. They both didn't play in the week 3 loss against Stanford. They had a bye. That was 2 weeks ago. Also, their defensive tackle, Stoudemire, he didn't play in that game either. So that's 3 starters on the defense that may be coming back. They're listed as questionable. It's not confirmed. But Boston College, in addition to playing good defense, in addition to being a defense I trust at home, they might be much healthier in this game than they were 2 weeks ago against Stanford. And I got to say, I'm really worried about this Cal rushing attack. I mean, their last 2 games, maybe they get a pass from Minnesota. Minnesota's going to have a top 25 run defense this year. But San Diego State, you should not be getting completely stifled by San Diego State's defensive front. I mean, they might be a solid Mountain West defense, but this is Cal. You should be able to run the ball in San Diego State. And in their last 2 games, Cal's averaging 2.29 yards per carry with a success rate per rush under 30%. Remember, this is especially concerning because that was Cal's problem last year. Mendoza played a pretty good season. I mean, he had a pretty good year for them at quarterback last year. He was throwing the ball, but Cal gave him no run support. Jaden Ott couldn't stay healthy. So to see Cal having the same struggles again this year, it's definitely concerning. I really don't have a ton of faith in Cal consistently moving the ball in this game. I don't think the run's going to be there. And maybe Sagapulatelli, maybe he bounces back with a performance, but I don't think he's going to have run support. I trust this Boston College defense. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith on this side of the ball for Cal. It's the other side of the ball. That's where I'm more willing to buy some Cal stock. This is a very strong defensive front. They were a very strong defensive front last year. I trust Wilcox as a defensive coach. And Boston College offense so far this year, kind of similar to Cal's the last couple of weeks, extremely one-dimensional. They cannot get the run game going at all. Now, the offensive numbers look fine, 31st in success rate, 45th in PPA, but that's all because of the quarterback. Sky Lonergan looks pretty good. Look at his numbers, 330 passing yards per game in his first 3 starts here at Boston College. Hasn't been under a ton of pressure, but he's handled it really well. He looks excellent. He's been slinging the ball. But like I said, this is a concern. In their first 3 games, they're averaging 2.57 yards per carry as a team, just like the Cal offense. And just like Cal's defense last year, they've been rock solid against the run. They're allowing 3.26 yards per carry, 37% success rate per rush. So it's tough to lay a big number with a team if you think the offense is going to be predictable and one-dimensional. Now, I will say Cal's defense has also been strong against the pass. They have some solid numbers here, but they really haven't seen a passing attack like this one. This kid Lonergan can really spin it. They also haven't been generating a ton of pressure, so I think Lonergan will have opportunities to make throws, and I think Cal might be a little vulnerable to the pass. Just tough to lay a big number if you don't trust Boston College to run the ball. But I trust the defense. I trust the quarterback. Anything under 7, I'll say Boston College. I would probably bet it if I knew those defensive pieces were going to play. As of right now, they're listed as questionable. So give me Boston College minus 6.5. UConn on the road at Buffalo. This would be a Taquan Roberson revenge game. He's a former UConn Husky. That's the quarterback for Buffalo, but he got hurt. He's not playing. He was injured last week. Right off the bat, I know I don't like this matchup for Buffalo's defense. I mean, I was talking about Buffalo's defense in the offseason. Been talking about it all year. The defensive front 7 is solid. I trust them to defend the run, but I don't trust the secondary at all. They brought back their secondary from last year, but they were getting cooked through the air last year. And look, we haven't really seen a ton of it yet this year, but they haven't played a single passing attack. The toughest passing attack that Buffalo has seen so far this year is week 1 on the road at Minnesota. And Minnesota has a redshirt freshman at quarterback. That was his first career start. His first career start, he was cooking, throwing the ball on Buffalo's secondary. I really don't think this secondary is very good at all. And UConn brought back a ton of production on the offensive side of the ball. They've got an experienced quarterback that can definitely throw it. It's off to a great start this season. UConn's been having some problems, not on this side of the ball. The offense looks great. Fagnano looks great. He hasn't been under a ton of pressure, but when he's seen it, he's handled it well. And that's going to come in handy because, like I said, Buffalo does have a strong defensive front. They have been generating pressure, but look at Fagnano. A 0% turnover-worthy play rate. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. Maybe not getting the ball downfield a ton, but he's getting rid of the ball quickly. He's an efficient thrower. This UConn offense really looks good, and Buffalo's defense has been susceptible to explosive plays. UConn, 11th in the country in explosive play percentage, so they're breaking a lot of these short passes. He's also throwing down the field a little bit, but he gets the ball out quick usually. So, yeah, I expect UConn to put up a number in this one. It's really on the other side of the ball. I don't trust either of these units, honestly. UConn's defense, elite last year, but they pretty much lost the entire defense. They lost 9 or 10 starters off of that defense, and they've been struggling on that side of the ball. But at the same time, Buffalo's offense has been a huge disappointment, and now they're coming in with a backup quarterback. They already weren't getting a ton of production from the quarterback position from Roberson, a clear drop-off from Igbana last year. Now they got a backup quarterback. His name's Gray, I think. I don't really know a ton about him. I really think this Buffalo offense is super easy to gameplay against right now. I think they're easy to gameplay against anyway, but now you throw a backup quarterback in. I don't trust UConn's defense. It's not nearly as good as it was last year, but they might be able to play well here. Look, I know the last week's game is concerning, but if you don't know what happened last week, UConn was struggling with Ball State, and Ball State is not a good team this year. This is like a transition season for Ball State with a new head coach and a new roster. So I know maybe you don't have a ton of faith in UConn, but you got to keep in mind, last week against Ball State was like the king of all flat spots for UConn. They had just come off back-to-back heartbreaking losses, games where they should have won, to Syracuse, who's their basketball rival, and then UDEL, who's another regional rival. I don't know if UDEL's really a rival, but it's another regional program. So UConn against Ball State coming off back-to-back heartbreaking losses. I think they bounce back here. I think they have no problems throwing the ball in Buffalo. I don't trust the defense, but I do think they're able to game plan for what should be a very run-heavy offense with a backup quarterback. So it's tough laying more than 3 on the road when you don't trust the defense, but I think the offense puts up a big number. So it would only be UConn at the -3.5. Yeah, there's no 3s out there. I would lean, you know what, maybe like a UConn team total over. I'm not doing team totals, but maybe a UConn team total over. Indiana, Iowa, and the action is coming. I can't believe this. The action's coming in on the Indiana side. No one believes in Kinnick anymore. Was that a flat 7? It's now up to 8.5, 20K limits. Indiana, Iowa, and Kinnick matchup history is not on Indiana's side in this one. 1-8 in their last 9 matchups against the Hawkeyes. 4 straight L's at Kinnick. But, I mean, do we just throw that out? This is obviously a new era of Indiana football with Cignetti. And, I mean, I think the main question here, you look at the Indiana offensive numbers and you have to ask, can they do that in Kinnick? Because it's very clear that Indiana can smoke inferior teams. They can even smoke mid-tier teams. But now on the road against this Iowa defense, we're talking about the upper echelon of the Big Ten here. Not many teams go into Kinnick and just run up the score on Iowa's defense. No defense that Indiana has seen even comes close to a road game against Iowa. In fact, if you look at last year's schedule, when Indiana went on that Cinderella run, I mean, based on the start to this season, it really wasn't a Cinderella run. That implies that it was some kind of fluke. I mean, there's only 2 games on there that are comparable in terms of the defenses they saw that are comparable to a road game against Iowa's defense, Ohio State and Notre Dame. And Indiana did not look good offensively in either of those games. So I'd be surprised if Indiana just goes into Kinnick and runs up the score against this Iowa defense like they have against almost everyone else they see. We do have to give Mendoza some credit. He's been excellent. Iowa pressure is definitely coming in this game. Let's give him some credit. He's handled pressure extremely well so far this year. That being said, we do need to point out that this will be the toughest road environment that Fernando Mendoza has ever played in his career. He played in 2 tough road games last year, at Florida State, at Pitt. Those are the 2 tough road games that Mendoza played in last year at Cal. Cal lost both of those games, and they scored a combined 24 points in both of them, averaged 12 points per game. So both times we saw Mendoza go into a tough road environment last year, the Cal offense didn't look good at all. And look, this season he looks excellent, but he's used to having run support. He's used to having clean pockets. Probably not going to be there against Iowa. I'd be very surprised if Indiana goes on the road to Kinnick and just runs the football on this Iowa defense. Nobody does that. I mean, we've seen Ohio State, Michigan struggle to do that. Iowa's defense should be able to give Indiana's offense all kinds of problems, just like Ohio State and Notre Dame did last year. The issue for Iowa, just like it is every other year, is on the other side of the ball. I mean, it's tough to trust Iowa's offense against this Indiana defense, which has been elite, 3rd in success rate, 13th in PPA on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I guess you can point at the last 2 games and say, hey, this Iowa offense is coming around, and that is true. They played back-to-back good offensive games in their last two, 42.5 points per game, 52% success rate, 6.15 yards per play. Iowa looks pretty good offensively in their last two games. We have to point out those games were against UMass and Rutgers, and that Rutgers defense is terrible. Yeah, I don't trust the Iowa offense, and you shouldn't either. What this Indiana defense did to Illinois last week should be illegal. That's a good offense with an experienced Big Ten quarterback there. They blanked them. 28.3% success rate, 3.58 yards per play. Now, that game was at home. Now they're going on the road to Kinnick. It's a very different environment, but really don't trust the Iowa offense. The thing is, as strong as Indiana looks, this Iowa team just doesn't get beat at home like that. We're talking about laying more than a touchdown to Iowa and Kinnick. Iowa has not lost a home game by more than a touchdown in 3 years. And when it happened 3 years ago, that was against number 4 Michigan. That was the team that went 12-0 and won the Big Ten with J.J. McCarthy. I mean, this team just doesn't get beat by more than a possession at home. If they lose, it's a field goal game. So to lay 8.5 or whatever it's at, 7.5 on the road in Kinnick just seems crazy. So, yeah, it would only be Iowa. This is probably a field goal game. Give me the Hawkeyes. UCLA Northwestern, not a ton happening in this market. Was at 7 briefly, then 6.5, now down to 6. UCLA Northwestern, a very pass-reliant UCLA offense, goes on the road to this lakeside temporary Northwestern stadium where it's usually pretty windy. Although from what I'm reading, the wind's not going to be too bad here, and Northwestern has struggled to defend the run so far this year. So, I mean, I'm not sure if UCLA is even capable of taking advantage of that. But Northwestern's defense is dealing with some injuries. Their safety, Damon Walters, he hasn't played yet this year. Doesn't look like he's going to be back for this one. The guy who's been starting in his spot is Garner Wallace, and he got injured in the Oregon game. So he's listed as questionable. So they might have their third-string safety out there. They also lost a corner in the Oregon game as well. Josh Fusel? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it looks like he's going to be out. So Northwestern's definitely dealing with a few injuries on the defensive side. The defense hasn't been particularly good. I mean, in my opinion, UCLA should be able to move the ball in this game. But on the other side, I don't know how you trust this UCLA defense. This is about as bad as it gets. I mean, they were getting bullied around at home in the Rose Bowl by New Mexico. So I don't know how you trust this defense. They're 136th in success rate, 132nd in PPA. I mean, this is terrible. I'm not laying 6.5 with Northwestern, but the idea of betting UCLA honestly makes me a little sick. So I guess I'll say over in this one. Not a ton of interest. Baylor, Oklahoma State, obviously the lead story. Oklahoma State firing Gundy. College football heads are pretty, I mean, the guy's been there forever. I don't know why you fire him mid-season. There was a couple really funny rants. College Experience did like a whole thing on it. Yeah, a lot of players withdrew from the program so they can enter the portal early. I don't know what to expect from this Oklahoma State team. The defense hasn't been good. I don't know how you can expect it to be better. You've got Baylor, one of the most explosive offenses in the country, pissed off coming off a home loss. I mean, yeah, they should light the scoreboard up in this one. And on the other side, look, I don't think Baylor's defense is very good at all. I've been pretty vocal about that. Oklahoma State's still rocking with the backup quarterback. That the main guy's not going to be back for this one. And the backup looked terrible against Tulsa. So I don't even know how you trust Oklahoma State to score points either. In my opinion, Baylor should win this game by 30-plus points. So Baylor minus 20.5. Ohio State, Washington. This one has been bouncing around, but it's been bouncing around between 8.5 and 9.5, which is 9's not a key number, so not really the most significant movement here. We're now sitting at a flat 9. Ohio State, Washington. This is an interesting one. So Ohio State's offense is kind of tough because, I mean, the numbers look great. They're 6th in success rate, 22nd in PPA. The numbers look excellent. But we've only seen them in one actual test. It was the opener against Texas, and the offense really didn't look good. The lead story of that win was more the defense looked great. Arch Manning looked terrible. That was kind of the lead story of that game. Ohio State's offense definitely didn't blow us away in that opener. Now, in the 2 games since, they're averaging 53.5 points per game, 9.56 yards per play, 67% success rate. So it looks like they're fine offensively. But, I mean, Grambling, Ohio, the Ohio Bobcats, that's a respectable opponent, but the defense isn't very good this year. It's their offense that's respectable about them. So, In those two games, they're averaging 7.5 yards per carry, 10.8 yards per pass attempt. I think Ohio State's offense is fine. I'm just saying we haven't seen them play a good offensive game against a good defense yet. So that brings the question, do we consider Washington to be a good defense? Remember, this is a defense that lost its defensive coordinator. Belichick went over to coach with his dad. The numbers on the season, they look pretty good. They look elite, actually, but we really haven't seen this defense tested at all. Remember, that Washington State game, a little bit of a misleading final score. It was 31-24 entering the fourth quarter, and Washington State was throwing the ball on this defense. So I'm not sure if Washington's defense is nearly as good as the numbers indicate. I think Ohio State's going to move the ball without problems in this game. And I know there's hesitation to back these Big Ten offenses when they go on the road to the West Coast, right? The transition into the Big Ten when they go across the country, the team traveling hasn't performed well. But I think Ohio State might be immune to that. They only went out west once last year. They went to Eugene against Oregon, and they hung 31 points in that game, and we're moving the ball pretty easily. They lost on a last-second field goal. So I think Ohio State will move the ball just fine. And keep in mind, this is a Washington defense that is not healthy right now. They lost their linebacker, Buda Al-Ukta. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. He's one of the team's leading tacklers. He got hurt last week. He's been ruled out. Their best corner, Takario Davis, got hurt in week 2. He hasn't played since. He's listed as questionable. Now, their big-time incoming transfer from Arizona, linebacker Jacob Manu, he hasn't played yet this season, and I'm reading there's a chance he could play in this game, but he's never played on this team before, so I don't know how much of an impact he has immediately in his first game ever with this team against Ohio State. Also, their best defensive lineman is still out with a torn Achilles, Javon Parker. So this is a Washington defense that, A, hasn't been tested, B, looked a little shaky against Washington State, and C, isn't healthy. So, yeah, I expect Ohio State's offense to move the ball pretty fluently in this one. What we really need to be looking at is the matchup on the other side. I mean, this should be a battle. The Ohio State defense, which probably was the best defense in the country last year, they lost a lot of pieces, but looks like they're picking up right where they left off defensively. First in PPA, 15th in success rate. They're going to have their hands full, though, on the road against Damon Williams and this Washington offense, which looks elite so far. I mean, Damon Williams has been excellent. He's been pretty flawless, but we do need to point out he's kind of had all day to throw. 3.07 seconds to throw. He's been holding on to the football. He's had the pleasure of doing so. I would imagine Ohio State and that defensive front, that NFL defense they've got there, they're not going to let him hold on to the ball for 3.07 seconds. Another thing Damon Williams has had this year, in addition to time to throw, he's had a ton of run support. In their first 3 games, Washington's averaging over 6 yards per carry as a team, over 260 rushing yards per game. Can't imagine that's going to be there against Ohio State either. So we're going to see. In my opinion, the only way Washington keeps this game competitive and covers this number is if Damon Williams has a superstar NFL day, which, based on the hype, he's capable of. Remember, they're fired up for Damon Williams out there. This kid's talented. So maybe he's an NFL superstar, and he goes out there and puts on a first-round draft pick type performance, keeps this game within a score, but I'm willing to bet against that. Give me Ohio State minus the number here. Looks like Ohio State just took some money, too. It was at 8. Looks like it's up at 9.5 now, right? Yeah. Looks like it's up at 9.5, so it looks like Ohio State did just take a little bit of money. Give me Ohio State, anything under 10. LSU Ole Miss, this one was up at 2.5. It looks like LSU got hit there, bought it all the way down to a pick. They raised limits at 20K, and then it looks like Ole Miss took some money at 20K limits. We're now at Ole Miss minus 1.5, 30K limits. LSU Ole Miss, I talked about this game on the live show. This is such a tough one. Right off the bat, we have to ask ourselves, because we know Ole Miss defensive front, nothing like last year, right? All those pieces are in the NFL. They lost their entire defensive front from last year, and it showed. Look at their numbers against the run so far this year. 109th in success rate per rush, 128th in PPA per rush. But here's the thing. LSU lost basically their entire offensive line from last year, and they've really struggled in that department. So is LSU, with their current offensive line, even capable of exploiting that weak Ole Miss defensive front? And it certainly doesn't help LSU that not only have they not really been running the ball successfully, but their superstar running back, Durham, he might not even be 100%. He sprained his ankle in week 4. He's listed as probable. I think he's going to play, but he might not even be 100%. So I don't like that right out the gate, that Ole Miss is definitely weak against the run. I'm not sure how strong LSU's rushing attack is. And look, one thing I will say is Ole Miss has elite numbers against the pass. If you look at their numbers against the pass, they look great. But they've really only seen one passing attack that's respectable. I mean, Tulane's all right with Retzlaff. But Taylor Green didn't have problems throwing the ball on Ole Miss. 126.1 rating with a clean pocket, over 100 QB rating in the game. So I think the Ole Miss pass defense numbers are a little skewed based on the fact that they haven't seen a ton of dynamic passing attacks. But I mean, again, what do we think about this LSU passing attack? It has not been the same. Part of me wants to say, yo, it's Brian Kelly, it's LSU. That's going to be an explosive offense. It's always an explosive offense. Doesn't matter. You take out Jaden Daniels, put in Nussmeier, still explosive. But the truth is, Nussmeier hasn't looked very good. He hasn't handled a clean pocket. Remember, he was dealing with something throughout camp. It was like an illness, or I forget. I don't want to. I forget exactly what it was. But Nussmeier was limited in camp. He was dealing with something. Hasn't quite looked great so far this year. In the first 3 games, you can see these numbers are not that impressive, and he hadn't even been under a ton of pressure. Now, they did come back and go off in the last game, but it was against Southeast Louisiana. Do we just erase the first 2 games? Oh, LSU's offense is fine. They crushed Southeast Louisiana. They crushed CeeLa. LSU's offense is fine. That seems like an irresponsible way to look at things. So I don't know what I think about this LSU offense, man. In their first 3 games, their 3 FBS games, they're averaging 20 points per game. Success rate under 39%. So as much as I don't trust this Ole Miss defense, I'm not sure if I trust the LSU offense either. But on the other side of the ball, this is where I think we can trust LSU. I know Ole Miss offense looks great. In their last 2 games, they're averaging 43 points per game, success rate over 54%. Trinidad Chambliss, I think he's going to be the starter. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't be. The offense clearly looks better with him in there, but I'm reading that Austin Simmons will still be the starter if he's healthy, but maybe that's the coach doing Lane Kiffin doing some PR work there. I'm not sure. I don't know why it wouldn't be Trinidad Chambliss. He's been excellent. He started the last 2 games. He's averaging 330 passing yards per game, and that was against Arkansas and Tulane. Okay, maybe not elite SEC defenses, but those are FBS. Arkansas is an SEC defense, but not really. Not against the best defenses, but clearly the Ole Miss offense has looked more fluent with him at quarterback. But this is going to be his biggest test by far, if he even starts. LSU's defense is the reason they're 4-0 right now. This defense looks electric. Now, I know looking back, Clemson and Florida kind of struggling offensively, so maybe those data points don't look as impressive now. But, I mean, this defense is creating a ton of pressure. And these numbers, they're allowing 9.3 points per game. Success rate under 35%, under 4.2 yards per play. This defense looks elite. And as excellent as Chambliss has looked so far, he has not been under a ton of pressure. He's definitely going to see some pressure in this game from LSU. So this is going to be a real test. We'll see how he handles it. I mean, if this kid handles the LSU pressure, protects the football, doesn't turn the ball over, I'll become a believer. But I need him to see a defense like LSU before I completely board the Trinidad Chambliss fan club, I'll say. As far as this head-to-head matchup, LSU has gotten the better of Ole Miss. LSU's 7-2 in their last 9 games against Ole Miss, but the 2 losses were their last 2 trips to Oxford. And the last time they came to Oxford, we saw one of the most electric football games we've seen in recent years, 55-49. That was Jackson Dart against Jaden Daniels, and that was a wild football game. So LSU has gotten the better of Ole Miss, but they have lost back-to-back trips here in Oxford. I did bet this game. I bet LSU money line, but honestly, this is kind of coin flippy. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, LSU's going to close as a short favorite. And then the more I looked at it, the more I was like, you know what, this line might be correct. So I jumped on it a little early. Not that I necessarily hate my bet, but I think the line's about right with LSU with Ole Miss as a very short favorite. So I'm on LSU money line. Should be a great one to watch. Auburn, Texas A&M. This one was bouncing back and forth between 6 and 6.5. They raised limit to 20K, and it looks like Texas A&M got hit. We're now up to a flat 7 here. Auburn, Texas A&M, and man, Auburn just cannot catch a break here. Not only did I don't want to say they got robbed last week, because I don't know if I would say Auburn necessarily deserved to win the game against Oklahoma, but they definitely could have. Like, that was a coin flip game, and Oklahoma ended up winning by a touchdown. A couple weird calls there that I wouldn't necessarily say were terrible calls. The missed pass interference was terrible, but they ended up scoring on that drive anyway. The fumble calls, the one overturns to incomplete, the one overturns to complete, and both went in Oklahoma's favor. Definitely unfortunate. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say Auburn deserved to win the game, but they weren't outplayed by Oklahoma. That was a pretty close game, and It's a heartbreaker. Then to immediately go from Norman, where you had your heart broken, and immediately go to Kyle Field to play Texas A&M coming off a bye. Man, this team just cannot catch a break. I will say Auburn is an offense that wants to run the ball, right? They have a very strong offensive line. Jackson Arnold wants to run the ball. He's a physical runner. And Texas A&M, their run defense is elite. I don't think they're quite on Oklahoma's level in terms of a defensive line. I think Oklahoma is probably the best defensive line in the country. So even though Texas A&M's defensive front is elite, I actually think Auburn will have a little bit more success here running the ball against Texas A&M. Also, their center should be good to go. Their center left the Oklahoma game injured, and they thought it was serious at first, but from what I'm reading, it's just a sprain, and he's going to play through it. So it looks like Auburn's going to have their center. Now, I'm concerned that Jeremiah Cobb might not be 100%. He also got banged up in the Oklahoma game. That's their RB1, by the way, Jeremiah Cobb. So it looks like he's going to play. I'm not sure he's 100%. Texas A&M dealing with some injuries as well on this side of the ball. Their safety, Bryce Anderson, is not going to play, and it looks like their linebacker, Scooby Williams, is listed as questionable. So they might be missing 2 starters there on the Texas A&M defense. So like I said, I do think Auburn will have a little bit more success running the ball against Texas A&M than they did against Oklahoma. That being said, I really don't trust Jackson Arnold much as a passer, and we saw him continually hold on to the football in that Oklahoma game. He got sacked what felt like 15, 20 times in the game, sitting there yelling at the screen, get rid of the ball. So he's just holding on to the football. We know this Texas A&M pass rush is coming. They always have a good pass rush coming off a bye week. So, look, Texas A&M is going to do the same thing that Oklahoma did defensively. Load up the box, do whatever they can to take away the run, force Jackson Arnold to make throws, and I'm not sure if he can make them. So although I do think they'll have more success running the ball, I still wouldn't go as far to say I necessarily trust Auburn to score in this game. It's really more the other side of the ball that worries me for Auburn. And you might look at their defensive numbers and say, what do you mean? Why are you worried about this side of the ball? And that's true. Auburn's defenses look strong, and they're getting Amaris Williams on the defensive line back. I think he's coming back. He only played 10 snaps in the last 2 games. So I think they're getting a starter back on the defensive line. They're missing a corner. But this Texas A&M offense, in my opinion, is significantly better than Oklahoma's offense. Oklahoma is a superstar Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback that's stealing headlines. Outside of that, Texas A&M's offense is better everywhere. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country. In fact, these 2 teams, Auburn's versus Texas A&M, these might be the 2 best offensive lines in the country. Their quarterback, Marcel Reed, can definitely play, looks much better this year than he did last year. He might not be Mateer, but, I mean, he's good, and they're just loaded everywhere. The running back's superstar. Concepcion, or wide receivers, is a superstar. So this Texas A&M offense, unlike Oklahoma, they have a lot of talent surrounding the quarterback position, and Auburn was able to play a great defensive game against Oklahoma. They held Oklahoma to 5.1 yards per play, 41.9% success rate on the road at Norman. They played great defensively. I think Texas A&M is going to move the ball in this game. I really like this offense a lot. They've got playmakers everywhere. So as far as betting this game, my plan kind of got ruined. My plan was to take Auburn last week, and they were going to play Oklahoma tough, maybe even have a chance to win the game, which looked great up until the final minute there. And then I was going to hammer Texas A&M this week. And if Auburn beat Oklahoma, I was going to get a great number, like Texas A&M minus 4.5 or something. That was the plan. Obviously, Auburn ended up not covering because of that crazy safety at the end. I think Texas A&M wins by a touchdown plus, so that's the way I'd go here, but I haven't bet it. I do think Auburn's a strong team, but it's just such a favorable spot for Texas A&M coming off the bye, and Auburn just with their heart broken. So it'll be Texas A&M. I also wouldn't be mad at an over here, but 52.5 is kind of a lot. We know Auburn's going to try to run the football, so give me Texas A&M. Tulane Tulsa, I mean, pretty much the same story as last week. If Kirk Francis plays, I like the over. We know Trey Lamb has said multiple times throughout camp he wants to run a fast-paced, spread offense, pass-first offense, and we just haven't seen it yet because the quarterback's been out for 3 weeks. He's listed as questionable again. We're now on week 4 in the concussion protocol. I didn't even know the concussion protocol went 4 weeks. So I don't know. I'm not even going to try to speculate whether or not Kirk Francis is going to play. If he plays, I like the over because I don't think Tulsa's defense is very good. I know they played well against Oklahoma State. That was their backup quarterback. Tulane shouldn't have problems scoring on Tulsa. And if Kirk Francis plays, I trust the Tulsa to put up points too. Tulane's defense has been kind of disappointing. So if Kirk Francis plays, I'll take the over. But based on how they've been handling the concussion protocol there, most likely passing. Tennessee, Mississippi State. If you were on this real early, you could have got, I think it was a 9.5 or 9 or something. Pretty much been bouncing back and forth between 7.5 and 8, and they seem pretty comfortable here. They're now up to 20K limits. We're looking at 7.5. Tennessee's on the road against the Cowbells. Another game where on paper we should see a ton of points. Both these teams top 25 in pace in terms of seconds between snaps. Tennessee's 3rd, Mississippi State 17th. So two very fast-paced teams. I will say Mississippi State's defense looks much better this year than they did last year. They were terrible defensively last year. This year, they're 27th in success rate, 28th in PPA. They're putting up some solid defensive numbers. That being said, they've only been tested once. It was the Arizona State game, and they got off to an early lead in that game. Arizona State was kind of in control for a lot of the game. I mean, they controlled the entire second half. They were running the ball all over Mississippi State, and then Mississippi State's offense went on that run at the end and made that crazy game-winning touchdown pass. But Arizona State averaged almost 5 yards per carry on the road here in Starkville, 51% success rate per rush. So, look, I don't think this Mississippi State defense is that good. It's better than last year. I don't think it's that good, and I don't think they're capable of making stops against this Tennessee offense. I mean, Joey Aguilar in this offense, it looks explosive. They're putting up points fast. I talked about this game on the live show, and I said I was leaning towards Mississippi State plus 7.5, but I took a deeper look at it, and there's no way I can do that because I think Tennessee's going to score a lot of points. So I'm switching my pick in this one. Give me the over 63. I believe in Blake Shapen in the Mississippi State offense. I also think remember, Tennessee's still missing their 2 starting corners there on the defense. So I think Mississippi State can score at home in this one, but I don't trust the defense to show up. Tennessee's offense looks really explosive. So give me the over. Middle Tennessee's on the road against Kennesaw, and I think the place to look is right here, the Kennesaw State offense. I know these numbers don't look good. 102nd in success rate, 108th in PPA. But since making the quarterback switch to Amari Odom, I think Jerry Mack feels like he has his guy. Remember, Amari Odom's mom is was the women's basketball coach at NC Central, while Jerry Mack was the football coach there. So he's known Amari Odom since he was 11 years old. And so, Jerry Mack wanted Amari Odom to be the quarterback the whole time. And he gave the starting job over to Amari Odom 2 games ago, and he's looked good since taking over. Remember, Jerry Mack wants to kind of completely change the culture here at Kennesaw State from a slow-paced run-first offense to more of a fast-paced, pass-centered offense. And it looks like Amari Odom better fits what he's trying to do. It's looked good since Amari Odom has taken over at quarterback. Kennesaw State has won back-to-back games, including an upset win over Arkansas State, where they put up 28 points in that game. Not that Arkansas State's defense is any good. But yeah, Kennesaw State seems to be way better than they were last year, and this Middle Tennessee State defense isn't any good. On the other side of the ball, Middle Tennessee, Vadiato at quarterback, they want to throw the ball. It's ugly at times, but they do have playmakers. They run a fast pace between Kennesaw State running a fast pace, between Middle Tennessee passing the ball. They're first in the country in pass frequency. I just think this game points to an over across the board. So yeah, give me over 52.5 here. Also, it looks like Middle Tennessee took some money. This was at 7.5. Oh, it's actually back up at 7. I saw it at 6.5 about an hour ago. So it looks like Middle Tennessee State got hit at 7.5, and then Kennesaw State got hit at 6.5. 7's probably the right number, but yeah, over 52.5. Arizona, Iowa State, kind of some seesaw action here. So Arizona originally got hit at 6.5, went down to 5, then back up to 6.5, and then back down to 5. So as at the time of recording, we're looking at a flat 5 here. Arizona, Iowa State. I don't know where the consistent offense is going to come from in this game. Both these defenses look really strong. Arizona's offense, they've been running the ball a bit. It really hasn't looked all that great. I doubt they're going to go on the road against this Matt Campbell defense and run the ball. I mean, that game against Kansas State, we all watched. Arizona dominated that game, and it shouldn't have been close. It ended up being close at the end. It shouldn't have been, but it wasn't Arizona's offense that dominated that game. I mean, they averaged 5.22 yards per play, success rate under 34%. Arizona's offense made a few plays, but it didn't look good against Kansas State, and I don't expect it to look good. That was at home. Now they're going to go on the road against Iowa State. I think Arizona is going to really struggle to move the ball in this game. But on the other side, look, I don't think Arizona's defense is this good. 6th in success rate, 7th in PPA. Obviously, these numbers are inflated. They played Hawaii with a limping Alejado at quarterback, and then they played Kansas State, who looks like they have the most broken offense in the Big 12. So they've had a fortunate schedule. But no question, this defense is strong. Like this, I'm not saying they're just not. What I'm saying is they're not this good, but this is a strong defense, and Iowa State's offense hasn't looked all that great so far. They really haven't shown a consistent rushing attack on the season. They're averaging 4.24 yards per carry, success rate under 42% per rush. Rocco Beck's made some throws. I mean, Iowa State looks strong, but not exactly the most explosive offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona's defense is able to stifle this offense a bit. I'm surprised this total hasn't come down. It's kind of been bouncing back and forth between 48.5 and 50.5. I would make this game 45.5, 46.5 in there. So I think this total's a few points too high. It would be under for me. I do think Iowa State wins, but 6.5 might be a little much. So I lean Iowa State on the side. But my bet in this game would be the under at 48.5. I think it's a few points too high. Western Kentucky, Missouri State. Got to give Missouri State some credit, man. Looks like they have a cool little home field advantage there. That SMU game was cool. They were winning for a lot of the first half. We should see a lot of throwing the ball in this game. Both these teams top 25 in the country in passing frequency. On paper, I'm not sure if Missouri State can make stops against Western Kentucky's offense, but I will say Western Kentucky's offense hasn't looked as fluent as we're used to seeing, and now we're dating back to last year. Last year was a little bit of a disappointing year for Western Kentucky's offense. What makes this one a bit confusing is the data points for the Missouri State defense, because they played USC on the road. Okay, they got lit up. And then they played SMU and actually played a solid defensive game. Their other two games are against Marshall, who has no passing attack at all. They held them to 83 yards, which isn't even, I mean, they don't throw the ball. And then UT Martin. So you could say, hey, they got lit up on the road at USC, their first game as an FBS team. Since then, they've played solid defense against the pass. You could say that, but you could also say they haven't really played anybody. And SMU, that's a solid game against SMU. I really don't know with this Missouri State team. But like I said, Maverick McIver and this Western Kentucky offense, a little bit of a disappointing couple games here. Their last two against Toledo and Nevada, not exactly college football playoff teams. He hasn't looked all that great. He struggled to make throws from a clean pocket. It's tough. I don't know if Missouri State can make stops in this game. It's tough. I'm rambling about this game, and I'm really not that sure. On the other side of the ball, originally, I thought Missouri State was going to be able to make throws against Western Kentucky, but I had Step on a Duck on the show, and he was talking about how Missouri State's offense so far has been extremely reliant on explosive plays, and Western Kentucky's defense outside of one game has been elite. They got lit up on the road against Toledo. So I don't know if Jacob Clark is capable of connecting on these explosive plays against Western Kentucky. It's tough to say. I mean, Missouri State actually leads the country in explosive play percentage, as crazy as it sounds. So their offensive numbers might be skewed a little bit from some big throws. This number's all the way down at what? 4.5? It's down to 3.5 now. Wow. So Missouri State's been taking the money. Let's go over in this one. I originally said Missouri State, and when I had Duck on as a guest, he kind of talked me off of it. So give me the over. Can't bet Missouri State at this low of a number. Give me the over in this one. Oregon, Penn State, and from what I could see, it looks like Oregon's taking money at plus 3.5. There are Penn State buyers, though, at 3. It looks like they brought it down to 3 briefly a couple times, and both times Penn State was hit. So there are definitely sharp buyers on Penn State at a flat 3. Oregon, Penn State, here we are. The rematch of the Big Ten championship game. This one's been circled for about 9 months. Obviously, Oregon gets the win in the Big Ten championship, 45-37. They were in control of that game start to finish, but Penn State did score there and stay in it in the second half. It was an absolute great shootout there. So Penn State's had it circled. They've been waiting for this date. They've had this one circled for a while. Obviously, when we're matching these two teams up on the field, we're going to see a lot of green in these graphics. Oregon's offense is 10th in success rate, 4th in PPA. Penn State's defense, 20th and 6th. Yes, these are two very elite units. The new defensive coordinator this year is Jim Knowles for Penn State. He was Ohio State's defensive coordinator last year, and he got 2 shots at Dan Lanning's offense last year as the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, and we saw two very different outcomes. In the Week 7 game, Jim Knowles was struggling to make stops. Oregon put up 32 points, over 7.6 yards per play. In fact, there weren't many stops in that game, period. Final score was 32-31. Oregon won with a game-winning field goal. So in the Week 7 game, Jim Knowles was struggling to make stops. That was on the road in Eugene, though. Then they played in the college football playoff, and he had the last laugh there. Ohio State went up to like 28-0 or something. They jumped out to a huge early lead, and then Oregon did score a couple touchdowns there in the second half, but it was a domination. So Jim Knowles had two cracks at Dan Lanning as the defensive coordinator for Ohio State last year, went 1-1. So is Jim Knowles in that Penn State defense capable of making stops against the Dante Moore version of the Oregon offense? Well, we got to give Dante Moore some credit. He's been essentially flawless so far this year. He's handled pressure extremely well, a 0% turnover-worthy play rate, protecting the ball. He's taken advantage when he's been given a clean pocket. He's thrown the ball downfield as well as taking throws underneath. He's been essentially flawless so far this year. Obviously, on the road in Happy Valley's a little bit different than what he's seen so far this year, but in comparison to Penn State's schedule, Oregon's a lot more battle-tested. So let's give Dante Moore some credit. He's looked excellent. In fact, Oregon has basically done whatever they wanted offensively, both on the ground and through the air. In the first two games, they're averaging over 6.7 yards per carry, 55.9% success rate per rush, and the passing numbers look just as elite. So far this season, Oregon has done whatever they wanted offensively, on the ground, through the air, and they should be getting their RB back, Noah Whittington. Not that Oregon's got like 5 running backs, but Whittington's one of their main guys. He's been out. He's expected to return for this one. So Oregon's offense looks as good as advertised. Now, so does Penn State's defense. This defense is elite. I just have a hard time seeing this offense get stopped. This Oregon offense is off to a way stronger start than they were last year, and Penn State's defense, as loaded as it is, it hasn't even been slightly tested. Not even a little bit. They haven't played anybody. So, I trust Dan Lanning. I like Oregon to move the ball here. I don't think this offense is going to get stopped. I think Oregon's going to move the football just like they did in the Big Ten championship game. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where the matchup gets interesting. So, first we got to point out that it looks like Oregon's struggling against the run based on the numbers we've seen so far. That's a little bit misleading. Northwestern broke a 79-yard touchdown at the end of the game, touchdown run. They also had another garbage time drive. Oregon's been elite defensively. Obviously, they haven't seen anything like Penn State's offense, but Oregon's been great defensively. The main story on this side of the ball is Drew Aller. He has not looked great so far this year, and I have so many questions. Number one, if you remember last year, so many of Drew Aller's moments came involving Tyler Warren, the superstar tight end, who's now in the NFL. Tyler Warren's no longer there. So do we trust Drew Aller to win these big games this year? Question number one. Do we trust this passing attack without Tyler Warren, the safety blanket, who basically, he single-handedly won that USC game. They came from behind. That's number two. Number three, and I think this is a big one, has James Franklin been holding back plays? Has he kept the playbook limited? Because keep in mind, Penn State was in kind of a different role this year. They're the top dog. They're the one with the target on their back this year. So with easy competition to start the season, I think it's very possible that James Franklin's been holding plays back. We saw Oregon doing that same thing last year. So that's another thing, is maybe we haven't even seen this Penn State offense yet. Maybe they've been playing with about 30% of their playbook, specifically waiting for this game. There's so many questions on this side of the ball, and I don't have any of the answers, honestly. We already know what Oregon's going to do defensively. It doesn't take a brilliant football mind to decipher Oregon's defensive game plan here. Load up against the run, do whatever you can to take those superstar running backs out of the game, force Drew Aller to make the throws. Can he make them? Look, maybe Penn State finally gets over the hump. Maybe this year is different with the coordinators, Cole Necky and Jim Knowles, great coordinators. Maybe this is the year where they finally start winning these big games, but I don't know how you lay more than a field goal. I'm on Oregon here, plus 3.5. I honestly think they're going to win, but I don't know how you lay more than a field goal with Penn State in a big game like this. Give me Oregon, plus 3.5. I did bet this. Alabama, Georgia, looks like some pretty similar action to the Oregon-Penn State game. Looks like they're taking Alabama money at 3 and Georgia money at 2.5. They raised limits to $40K, and it looks like Alabama got hit at plus 3 again. Now down to 2.5 at the time of recording. Alabama, Georgia, and Athens. Man, what a Saturday. In addition to all the games we talk about, we got this one too. So obviously Kirby Smart has struggled with Alabama. Crimson Tide 9-1 in their last 10 games against Georgia. Not all these were against Kirby Smart though. I think Kirby Smart's 1-6. I think Kirby Smart's 1-6 against Alabama. So Georgia has had problems with Alabama. Kirby Smart has had problems with Alabama. Now, most of those were against Nick Saban, but you know what? DeBoer did not have problems putting up a big number on the scoreboard last year with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. Last year against Georgia, granted this was in Tuscaloosa, but they put up 41 points, 47.1% success rate, over 8.4 yards per play. They had no problems lighting up this Georgia defense last year. And after that rough opener on the road in Tallahassee, Ty Simpson has been essentially perfect, and he passes the eye test. He looks very, very good. I know Louisiana Monroe, not exactly a respectable opponent, but Wisconsin's defense is pretty good. So, yeah, he's been essentially perfect in the last 2 games. He made his first career start on the road in Doak Campbell in a harsh environment against a Florida State defense that's very good. So I'm not taking too much away from that opener. He looks really good. This Alabama offense looks really explosive. And after seeing what Joey Aguilar did to this Georgia defense a couple weeks back, I mean, threw for 371 yards. They were struggling to get pressure on him. He handled the pressure well. I mean, after seeing what Joey Aguilar did to this Georgia defense, after seeing what DeBoer did to this Georgia defense with Jalen Milroe last year, after seeing how good Ty Simpson looks, how could you possibly count on this Georgia defense to make stops? Well, there's this. If you're betting on Georgia, you're looking at this right here. Kirby Smart, 33 consecutive. 33. That's not a typo. 33 straight wins at home in Athens. Remember, Kirby Smart has struggled with Alabama. They've never played in Athens. It's always been the SEC championship game or Tuscaloosa. Kirby Smart has actually never played Alabama in Athens. Alabama has won their last 2 trips to Athens. Those were before Kirby Smart got there. So despite Kirby Smart being 1-6 or whatever against Alabama, he's never played Alabama at home in Athens, and he's won 33 consecutive football games there. Man, something's got to give. I think Alabama's offense is going to move the ball and put up points just like they did last year, but it's kind of hard to argue with 33 straight wins. How do you argue with 33 in a row? Now, on the other side of the ball, I'm really not too sure because I really think Alabama has the most talented defense in the country. I said that before the season started, and that hasn't changed. I truly believe that opener, not that reliant of a data point. I think that was more... I mean, Gus Malzahn and Castellanos, nobody knew what Florida State's offense was going to come out and look like. I mean, they had the complete element of surprise there going for them in that opener. So I still think Alabama has one of the most talented defenses in the country. But I got to say, after watching Gunnar Stockton drive down the field on the road in Knoxville, down 8 to tie the game 38-38, I mean... This young man earned my respect. That's a tough road SEC game. You're down 8 points, drive all the way down the field on the road in Knoxville against a strong Tennessee defense, score the touchdown, make the throw on the 2-point conversion. Yeah, that was some grown man shit right there from Gunnar Stockton, and he's earned my respect. So I really don't know what to expect on this side of the ball. I think Alabama's going to score points, but how do you argue with 33 wins in a row? I really have no idea what to do in this game. I'm going to bet Alabama in the over, I think, but I'm just doing some gambling here. I really don't know. I think 3 is probably the right number. So give me Alabama +3 and the over. Just doing some gambling. This should be an electric one. I got to cut it off there to get this video out. Kind of like the under in the Kentucky-South Carolina game. I haven't bet that yet, but I kind of like the under there. I also think Colorado can cover and stay competitive with BYU. Hank Bachmeier looked good on the road at ECU. I don't trust laying 6.5 against Colorado. Colorado's better than ECU, and in that Houston game they kind of battled back a little bit. So I would lean towards Colorado +6.5. I missed a few other games as well. What other ones? Whatever. We'll talk about it on the live show 10 a.m. I got to get this video out. I'm way behind. So thanks to everyone for watching. See you guys in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern.